Hello friends and welcome to NTRAS. Today we're going to be looking at the Cisco ASA. Over here I have a couple of ASA 5506X's that are going to be configured in an active standby mode. You'll see here we have our port 8s. They're directly connected to one another. They're going to provide the failover link. You'll see we also have Gigi management connected, as well as a Juniper switch down here that's going to be doing our interactivity between our workstation and our ASAs. So starting off, you'll see here we have a Cisco ASA up and running. Currently serial COM3 is connected into my bottom ASA here, which we're actually going to make 100.20 when we configure it. For now I'm just going to do a reload on it really quick so you can see an automated pre-installation. So I'll wait for the Cisco ASA to boot here. One of the things you might want to know about the ASA line is it's called an adaptive security appliance. Now it's technically an advanced firewall that came out quite a few years ago, but it was actually the replacement of Cisco's PIX firewall. If you're wondering what the next iteration is, it's the Cisco's Firepower services. And with Cisco Firepower, the appliances, you can actually run the ASA software as well as the new Firepower software. One of the questions you may ask yourself, well, why not just get an ASA? Well, one of the biggest reasons of getting a Firepower appliance is because the ASAs currently do not come in a 10 gig format anymore. In the past, the 5585 used to have the 10 gig ports, but since Cisco end of saled that, you can't actually get them anymore, except maybe from used on eBay or whatnot. So having the ASA software on a Firepower appliance allows you to have that 10 gig connectivity for your data center or your high-speed enterprise. Alright, so now we're at the Cisco ASA prompt starting us out. So we're going to use the enable command to start the ASA. We'll put in our password, it should be blank, and the Cisco ASA comes up. So here we start on the pre-configuration setup. You'll see here that it wants to use the firewall mode of routed as by default. Next we have an enable password, which we can use the current or add a new one. In this case I'll just say it's Cisco. Allow password recovery. So if you're in a highly secure environment where you wouldn't want password recovery to be available, you can always hit no. Now this can pose a problem if you lose your password, so a lot of times we just leave this as yes. Then it asks us the year. In this case it is 2020, September, and it's actually the 26th today, so we put that in. The time will be 17:05:00. I have a management IP address. This is my first one, so it'll be 10.2.100.20. We'll have a /24-bit mask. Our host name will be Cisco ASA primary. Domain name, in this case ntras.com. IP address of host running device manager. We actually don't have a device manager, so we'll leave that blank. And then we can save it to flash. Yes is the default, and we save it. Now keep in mind, when you come into the ASA, you'll have to type in your password with the enable command, and everything will pretty much be blank. If we do a show interface IP brief, you'll see here that all of our ports are administratively down, except for our management 1/1. Now since we had the management interface plugged into our network, we should be able to ping it. So let's see if that ping works for us right now. 10.2.100.20, and you're going to see we actually got a response. So now we have our management interface configured. The question is, okay, can we SSH to it now? Well, the answer is usually no. We try to connect to 10.2.100.20 and we're probably going to get a session denied. And you'll see here we got connection timed out. So if you come back to your Cisco ASA, show run interface management 1/1, you'll see here that it is for management only, and it's in the management security zone with a security level of 0. Now that's just the first step. So if we do a show run SSH, You don't have to do section commands in an ASA, which is just fantastic. But if you do this, you'll notice that we have SSH strict host key check, a timeout of 5, and our key exchange group is Diffie-Hellman Group 1 SHA. So a couple things we have to do. If you try to do crypto here, we get a certificate authority option. So we need to go into configure terminal. We'll hit no on this. Crypto key generate RSA, and then we can specify general keys, a label, a modulus, no confirm, and how the keys are used. But let's just do the crypto key generate now. We already have a key pair, but we can come in and say yes to replace them. Next, we need to do SSH question mark, and we have to provide IP address of the hosts or network authorized to SSH to this particular system. In this case, I'm connecting from 10.2.100.0. You're going to see here we have our net mask we have to apply as well. And of course, we have to specify the interface name or security zone. In this case, we're connecting to the management network. As you'll remember, in the management 1/1, it is the management zone. So you have to include that if you're going to SSH to a system. So for now, we come back to 20 and see if we can reconnect. One of the other things we may need to do is create a username. In this case, I'll create the username of Tim, and I'll give it a password of Tim. So let's try to do our SSH again. So after that doesn't work, we need to try a few more items here, such as the SSH version. We'll allow version 2. And after playing around a little bit, I noticed that my SSH key exchange for group Diffie-Hellman 1 wasn't working because it's not allowed within secure CRT. So after configuring group 14, I'm able to come in here and to reconnect to my Cisco ASA. It then asks for my username and password. So I can put that in. And if all that doesn't work, we come in here to AAA and specify the authentication for SSH, console, and then we can specify local. So once again, we need to make sure we have our username. I deleted it earlier, so username Tim, password Tim, reconnect. Let's try this again. And there you go. Once we get in here, you can notice we have the enable command and Cisco. This allows us to get into and SSH to our system. Now keep in mind, the ASA has something called an ASDM. So if we come in here, we'll notice we have the Adaptive Security Device Manager. But it's the same thing with the SSH as it is with HTTP. So show run section, which we don't have to do, HTTP. You're going to notice there's nothing here. So let's come into configuration mode, HTTP, and we have a few options. We can enable the HTTP server. We can specify an SSL listening port if we do not want the default of 443. So we'll enable this, but first let's come over here and verify that it doesn't work. https://10.2.100.20. As you see, it doesn't work. So let's come back over here. We'll enable it for 443. And we have to specify the network of devices that are going to attach. In this case, 10.2.100.0 with a 24-bit mask, and of course on the management security zone. Once we do that, we can come back into our web browser, reconnect, and we have our connection. Now, of course, we don't have a certificate from our certification authority here, so we'll get an error message. We just continue on to the web server, and we have the ability to look at and install the ASDM. Now we can use the Java Web Start, which will start basically a Java application, or we can install the ASDM launcher. Now keep in mind, you have to have this ASDM file on your ASA, otherwise you won't be able to install it. So once we hit install ASDM, it'll ask us to re-authenticate, and we get the DM Launcher MSI down here at the bottom. Once we open this file, we need to make sure we have the Java Runtime Environment, or JRE, installed in order to use the Cisco ASDM. So let's go to java.com. From here, we'll just download Java, agree and start. Now, I'm hoping this doesn't happen to us right now, but at times in the past, there have been certain Java versions that really don't work. So we'll just do the installation. And sorry for the cutoff here, I'm actually running one of those Samsung ultra-wide systems, so you may see it chop off at times. But we've successfully installed Java. We'll hit close, and we'll try this again. Install ASDM Launcher, open file, next, next, install. This will install the ASDM IDM Launcher, which oddly enough can't run on this PC. We can try installing the Java Web Start, and we don't have the components. Now when this happens, we have to get an updated version of ASDM, because apparently 7.51 does not run on my version of Windows 10. I'm going to pause here, and at some point I'll be back with an ASDM install. So just kind of an FYI here while we're waiting, I need to install a new version of ASDM and whatnot to the to a USB drive so I can copy it over to the ASA. If you come in here and you can format a USB drive with the FAT32 file system, a lot of people might be like, well, how can you do that with Windows 10 when the only format options you have is NTFS and exFAT? So keep in mind you have the ability to format disks within an ASA. So after finagling with this thing a little bit, you'll see here that I have an ASA 9.14 iOS software and the ASDM for 7.14.1. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a dir question mark, so you'll notice that when you plug a USB in, it becomes a disk 1. If you do dir by itself, it's technically disk 0 you're looking at. Normally in Cisco devices you'll say flash or boot flash, so you're going to notice that flash and disk 0 are technically the same thing. So dir disk 1, copy disk 1, we'll do the ASDM first, we'll copy this one to disk 0, and then we'll do the same thing with the iOS software. dir disk 1, copy disk 1, ASA software to disk 0. While we wait for it to copy, we'll pause it real quick. Once it's copied over, you'll get a nice little computed hash option here. So you'll see we're using the SHA-2 algorithm to verify that the ASA image is proper. Now, a lot of times you want to make sure the software or file you get is genuine and original, and using a SHA will allow you to do this. So the next thing we have to look at is the show run include ASDM. So you'll see here we do not have anything ASDM. Let's try it show run without the pipe. And we don't have anything. So fig-t ASDM image disk 0, and you can choose the ASD image you are going to be working with. In this case, our ASD image is 714, which is complementary of 914, the ASA software. So once we have done that, shall run ASDM. You'll see here now we have our image. Now there are some other options we can choose here, such as groups who can use ASDM, history information, and of course if we have an external network object showing this location. So for now, let's go back into our ASDM web page here. Try this again from 7.5.1 to 7.14.1, and let's try to install it again. Finish. Now that we have Java and a newer version of ASDM, let's hope that it works, and it still doesn't. So I have been unable to get the Cisco ASDM to run on Windows 10. So one of the things I did, I went to the launcher properties, and I'm going to replace this target information with a Windows System 32W script location, and I should probably change that here as well, but no, that's Cisco Systems ASDM. Hit apply and hit OK. Now when I run Cisco ASDM IDM Launcher, you're going to notice it works. So if it doesn't work, just remember you have to go into the Cisco ASDM IDM shortcut and change the configuration to Windows System 32W script. Once you do that, you'll be able to open the launcher. So now we have the launcher ready. Let's try to log into our Cisco ASA. So here you see our Cisco ASDM 7.14.1 for Cisco ASA. We currently have an ASA version of 9.5.1 running ASDM version 7.14. We're in single context mode, and we have an 8 gig flash module, and our management interface has been configured. So from here, one of the things I want to see about doing is going into Tools and upgrade software from the auto updater. So this will ask us for a Cisco.com login if we're going to do it from Cisco itself. Otherwise, we can come in here and upgrade the software from our local computer. Once we go into the upgrade software option, we can look at the image to upload for ASA. Since it already exists, we know it's already there, so we don't really want to do this because it copies the local file to the flash file system. So let's cancel this for the time being and see if we can figure out how to upgrade using local file system. So one of the things we can do here is come into the command line interface to type single or multiple lines, and of course enable context sensitive help. Now keep in mind you can do this from SSH, or you can do it from here. So we can try boot system ? From here we can go disk 0 ? And it'll give us a listing of all the devices on here. So disk 0, and we can copy the 914 file and hit paste. Once this is done, we can send it to the device, and you'll notice the boot system disk 0 ASA 914 has been sent. So from here we can do show run boot, and you'll see we have the boot system disk 0 ASA 914. Once this is done, we can come back to Tools, and we can reload the system. You can save the running config at time of reload, when you're going to reload it, and a couple of other options. Now before doing this, I want to show us something that's rather fantastic about the Cisco ASDM in the Tools Preferences options. For communications, we can preview commands before sending them to the device. This is an excellent way of learning and understanding the CLI of a Cisco ASA. By doing this, we can come in here and learn the commands. So we want to save the config and when we're going to reload. And from here we hit schedule reload. Other console, telnet, or SSH sessions may be accessing the device at this time. Are you sure you want to schedule a reload? We can hit yes. This will give us those preview of the CLI commands: reload, no confirm, and save config. This one line will do our reload and hopefully boot us back into 914. So let's send this config, and we're going to wait for the system to reload. We can go back into our secure CRT to see if the system is actually rebooting, and you're going to notice it is. So once this thing shut down and come back up, I'll restart the video and we can continue. Alright, so here we are back online. You notice we have our ASA version of 9.14 and our ASDM of 7.14. I currently have a second Cisco ASA reloading right now, opening up for 9.14 and 7.14 as well, where we're going to be looking at setting up high availability and scalability. And one of the nice things here is we have a wizard that can help us do our high availability. But first, one of the things I want to do is do our configuration. Now for our interfaces, we currently have gig 1/8 that's going to be our failover interface. So I'm going to come over here and edit gig 1/8. We can specify a bridge group and an interface name, as well as route maps and security levels. For here, what we're going to do is give it a static IP address. We'll make it pretty simple here. 192.168.255.1, and we'll make this a /30. We also need to enable the interface. Once we hit OK and apply, this will tell us we're no shutting the interface and providing an IP address to it. We can send this, and now we have our gig 1/8 ready to go. From here, we're also going to add a device, 10.2.100.21, and we can connect to the device now. Once we save, we'll move on to 100.21. So once we have connected over to our secondary ASA, you'll see here that we have given it a 192.168.255.2. Now you'll also notice I'm having a lot of issues with my Cisco ASDM right now. I believe that is because of how Windows 10 doesn't really work with the ASDM, and this is proof of it. You see here all my windows are weird and jacked up, so yeah, that is something you may have trouble with as well, and hopefully it can get fixed, or we can fix it some other time. But for now, I just want to show you back over on 10.2.100.20, which is our primary. We have the ability of running a high availability wizard, giving us active standby. From here we can hit the next, and you'll give us a pure IP address, which we can have as an object. So we come over here and type 192.168.255.2, and then next, it's going to check connectivity to the other device. It'll go through some of the options here, single multi-firewall mode compatibility test, and it's saying that connectivity and compatibility test failed. So let's get out of ASDM because it's apparently not working. Alright, so let's see if we can SSH to our ASAs again. Alright, so here we are in Cisco ASA primary. Make sure we have the right password. Alright, same thing with our Cisco secondary, which it doesn't seem to work, so we need to verify Cisco primary here, or Cisco secondary here. So show run SSH, have our key exchange for Diffie-Hellman group 14, 10.2.100.0. This time we actually have a management security zone instead. Show run user. You're going to notice I have my username here, and we have to verify show run AAA, which it isn't there. Now, if you remember back before, we actually had to do the AAA command to allow AAA authentication SSH console local. So once we put that into our secondary, we'll be able to make this work. Apparently there wasn't a key pair. There you go. One of the things you need to remember too, that sometimes the RSA key pair is not created for you. So once you do that, we're now in our Cisco ASA secondary.